For as long as I can remember, I have loved going to the movies. There is something so captivating and transformative about film. How a gifted screenwriter can turn incredible ideas into powerful words, summoning drama, humor, and conflict from the page like casting a spell. How an actor who knows their part better than they know themselves can breathe life into those words, creating a character who until that moment only existed on paper, and a performance with the potential to be remembered for generations to come. And how a director with vision and imagination can bind those rare elemental creative forces, fashioning them into a gateway able to draw you into whole other worlds, holding fast to your senses until the closing credits roll, and sometimes, if the job is well done, for far longer. My name is M. Glenn Gore. I'll be your host each week as we explore in depth the newest releases both in the theater and at home. You're watching In Like Glenn, and today we're discussing Thor Ragnarok. The following video review contains spoilers for the film Thor Ragnarok. Proceed with caution. If I said the Thor movies have suffered a far harder climb up the hill of greatness than their cinematic Marvel siblings, I don't think I'd be going out on a particularly untested limb. The God of Thunder's 2011 debut is, at best, north of serviceable. With its ham-fisted handling of rival brothers vying for the throne of Asgard and the respect of their father, a love interest so forced, unnecessary, and artificial it elicited eye rolls from even the most forgiving of fans, relatively low stakes being played for at the film's climax, and what might just be the second most forgettable villain in the MCU, a walking toaster oven that shoots fire, it's impressive the franchise didn't die right then and there. Thor: The Dark World, the former's 2013 follow-up, doubled down on the tedium, again burdening us with the love affair that no one bought, and a villain whose name and motivation I challenge anyone to recall without resorting to a Google search. It featured fleeting moments of well-played drama, most notably when addressing how the death of Loki's mother affected him, and was, in truth, only saved by the inclusion of Benicio del Toro's Collector, the introduction of a new Infinity Stone, and a telegraphed but appetite-whetting surprise ending that had us all amped for the third installment, which is impressive considering how little the franchise had really given us thus far. I dare say only Iron Man's two lackluster sequels have come close to usurping the Thor franchise's very underwhelming crown, and I actually liked Iron Man 3. Well, mostly. I mean, the reveal was certainly surprising, but why did they do this?
It's complicated. Hey, it's complicated,
It
right?
is.
It's complicated.
Thor 2 ending on such a huge cliffhanger was ballsy when you weigh the knowledge we had to wait 4 years for the resolution. To put it into perspective, we got 2 Captain America films, 2 Guardians of the Galaxy outings, and a whole new Avengers between the release of The Dark World and Thor Ragnarok. The wait was long. The fact the movie came out at all means I owe half a dozen people a Coke because I was firmly in the never gonna happen camp. So was it worth the wait? Was all of my hand-wringing and teeth-gnashing warranted? That's where things get tricky. First things first, when Taika Waititi of the inspired and side-splitting New Zealand-based vampire documentary What We Do in the Shadows was announced to direct, I turned several cartwheels. Figurative ones, obviously. I'm not Michaela Maroney. And with screenwriting credits going to Christopher Yost and Craig Kyle of Star Wars Rebels and all Marvel things animated respectively, I was ready to forgive, forget, and welcome Ragnarok into my heart like a barbecue bacon double cheeseburger topped with onion rings and a fried egg. And for the most part, it didn't disappoint. It feels very little like its predecessors, both in appearance and in tone. The previous 2 entries frequently swam in dour waters, especially the latter, each at times taking themselves so seriously that you forgot to enjoy yourself on a journey through the worlds of gods and monsters. But Ragnarok finds the fun and the humor, effortlessly showcasing both in gleeful, reckless abundance. Chris Hemsworth, returning to the part of Thor, seems most at ease with this new, more lighthearted fare, and plays the eponymous role almost as though a great weight has been finally lifted from his shoulders. Tom Hiddleston's troublemaking Loki also delivers in all the ways you've come to expect, but is considerably less menacing here than in his previous turns. In Ragnarok, the Shakespearean veneer between them that has been a fixture since the first Thor has been all but stripped away, leaving the two feeling less like gods and more like any pair of quarrelsome brothers you've ever met, right down to their ridiculous plots and hijinks, few of which will strike you as particularly well thought out.
Classic.
Idris Elba and Karl Urban of Star Trek Beyond, that's me being efficient with the footage library, are along for the ride as Heimdall and Scourge, though neither really has a terrible lot to do. There's simply so much going on in this chapter that some characters just kinda get swept up by the wave, none more so than the Heroes 3, Fandral, Volstagg, and Hogun, who are each taken out so fast that if you blinked you'd miss it. And I know that because I did. Newcomer Tessa Thompson of Annihilation and Dear White People plays Valkyrie, a hard-drinking Asgardian slave trader, who is engaging literally from the first moment she appears on screen. She doesn't miss a step in asserting herself as an equal, keeping up with the more seasoned players in this realm as though she'd been there all along. The legendary Cate Blanchett of The Aviator and the Lord of the Rings trilogy joins the ensemble cast as Hela, the goddess of death, and this film's primary antagonist. Her performance is equal parts funny and fearful, but honestly, what can you say about Cate Blanchett that hasn't been said already? She's a treasure. The film could have benefited from more of her, especially in the moments when she reminisces over Asgard in her time, before the, she would say, misguided efforts of Odin dragged it down from its former glory. The turning point in this chapter comes when we discover Asgard gained peace and its place at the head of the 9 realms, not through diplomacy but by war, and not just war against an invading force, but rather by the ruthless slaughter, conquer, and subjugation of the other worlds, a revelation that exposes its noble history for what it is, a beautiful lie fed to not only Thor, but to us. It's regrettable that more of the film isn't devoted to this, because the disclosure leaves you breathless for more. Zodiac and Spotlight's Mark Ruffalo puts in another fantastic turn as Bruce Banner and his gigantic green alter ego, the Hulk. This is the first time we've seen him since the near-catastrophic events of Avengers Age of Ultron that sent him off on his own with no intent on return. In many ways, this is his movie, taking a number of cues from the immensely successful 2006-2007 Marvel comic storyline Planet Hulk. Ragnarok uses the fan-favorite series as a vehicle for exploring the character we've already come to know and love further. Every scene he is in shines with humor and heart, making you eager to see what's next in store for the character. The ever-captivating Benedict Cumberbatch of The Imitation Game and Star Trek Into Darkness makes a brief but amusing appearance as the powerful Sorcerer Supreme, which isn't at all a spoiler provided you stayed for the post-credits sequence of his ambitious 2016 introduction to the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Mr. Doctor. Mr. Doctor.
It's strange.
Maybe. Who am I to judge?
But I think even after all of this, the man everybody showed up to beat has got to be Jeff Goldblum's Grandmaster, a kind of whimsically sadistic mini-boss who looks and sounds like he spends happy hour swapping stories with Benicio del Toro's Tanelier Tavon from Guardians of the Galaxy. Goldblum is having the time of his life in this outing from the looks of it. He is so wonderfully bizarre here, so far south of normal that at this point, it's almost like he's doing a Jeff Goldblum impression, and it works perfectly. Ragnarok borrows liberally from what's come before, taking from everywhere, which is appropriate given that much of the narrative takes place on a planet made up of other planets' garbage. In the hands of a lesser director, this type of setting could easily have been bleak, but it's instead a wildly colorful mishmash of styles. From its brilliant visuals, which harken back to everything from Star Wars and Gladiator to Tron and Willy Wonka, to its oddly fitting 80s synth-pop soundtrack, it seeks to overload your senses at every turn, and very nearly succeeds. The action sequences are kinetic and fast-paced, even if the editing gets a little too frantic for my taste during some of the fight scenes. It's genuinely fun to witness Thor, Hulk, and Valkyrie really use their considerable super strength and agility. There are moments that feel like you're watching an old-school side-scroller like Mega Man or Metal Slug, as the action is approached with such fearlessness, such willful abandon. Unfortunately, the movie is not without its shortcomings. I'm not even certain I'd call them flaws, they were just things that didn't work for me specifically. The big one is simply that I wasn't prepared for just how much of a comedy this was going to be. Don't get me wrong, it's damn funny, and frequently at that. And it has some heart, not a lot, but some. But there was an almost pathological need to undercut any and all drama, tension, or suspense earned with jokes. And these jokes ran across the spectrum. People falling down, people getting hit on the head, grand gestures robbed repeatedly of emotional impact time and again, all for the sake of the joke. I left feeling like the cast of Guardians of the Galaxy would have watched this and recommended they take it down a notch.
What's your humor setting, Gosh?
That's 100%.
Let's bring it on down to 75, please.
If there is anything I'd change about Thor Ragnarok, it's this. However, in its defense, or in defense of the comedy at least, Avengers Infinity War is fast approaching. Thanos is coming, and from what we've seen of him so far, he's not going to be happy when he gets here. It's not hard to imagine things are going to get very grim for a lot of characters we love very soon. Maybe Ragnarok has it right. Maybe things only seem bad now. And maybe we should all get in our laughs while we still can. I'm giving Thor Ragnarok 4 out of 5 stars. That's it for today's episode. As always, thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed the show, please like, share, and subscribe, and follow me on Twitter for more updates. Until next time, you were just in like Glenn.